Mike's on. He's ready to go on the Fan. New York Sports Radio. Mike's on. Mike's on. He'll get you the sports any way that he can. It's Mike Francesa on the Fan. Sports Radio 66.
All right. We welcome in the one, the only, Mike Francesa.
Yeah!
The Sports Pope. Mike, thank you so much for joining us for our first show here on Barstool Radio.
Congratulations, Julie, and whoever else I'm speaking to. Who am I speaking to?
You're speaking to Willie Colon, former New York Jet.
And Willie, how are you? Nice.
Hey, Mike.
And who else? And who else?
This is Francis Ellis, formerly of Harvard.
He's a
Francis
comedian.
Ellis. Okay, there we go.
Yep.
Nice to speak to you. How are you guys doing? How's the show going?
Well, we're still on air right now, so things are going well. And we have you. I hitched my wagon to Mike Francesa because I thought, hey, how are we going to get ratings? We go to number one. And we got to know, though, Mike, like, since you said goodbye to the Fan, how's it been? Like, I mean, you're on air right now. How are you dealing with it?
It's been okay. I mean, listen, I would have been off the last couple of weeks in December anyway, so that's be normal. But since the 3rd of January, it's been a little weird, especially when there's been like games like last weekend and not being able to talk about it. That's been a little strange. So it's been a transition. It's been a little bit of an adjustment. I can't really do anything for a couple more months here. I have to kind of bide my time. I will be doing something in the future. I can't talk about that yet because, first of all, I don't know what it is because I haven't made any decisions. But secondly, I can't do much before April 1st, so I have to kind of sit and wait and watch. So it's been a little different, no question. You know, when you're used to doing it so much, when you're used to being on every day as long as I was on, 5.5 hours a day by myself, that's a lot of time to be talking. So I've probably driven a lot of people around my house and in Florida crazy the last couple of weeks.
So what you're saying is there's still a chance for us to convince you to come to Barstool Radio, especially Barstool Breakfast. I mean, we definitely have a chair right here.
Listen, I think, you know what, I actually think I'm too old for you guys now. I mean, I
grew up on you, Mike. You're great. I grew up listening to you.
Well, listen, I grew up. Now, when I think Barstool, I think you guys are being new and being cutting edge and being younger. And, you know, for someone who's been in the business as long as I have and has, you know, been part of this for a generation or 2 generations now, it's your time. So I don't even know if I would fit in there, to be honest with you.
You talk about generation. Like, listen, Mike, I'm a New Yorker from the Bronx, went to Cardinal Hayes High School, then the Hofstra, and then on to the NFL, Pittsburgh and Jets, so on and so on. That's Willie Colon's legacy. However, you have been a staple in New York radio. You have been a legend. Now that, you know, I think you have more in the tank. Now that you're kind of sitting on the couch, you're watching the world of sports, have you had time to digest your legacy and what you've been able to do to sports radio? For sports radio, rather?
You know, a lot of that, yes, Willie, because the last couple of years has been a lot of that. It started when Dog and I agreed to do that 30 for 30 for ESPN, which Dog talked me into and the kids talked me into because I didn't have a great relationship with ESPN through the years, so I was a little hesitant to do it. But once we started going down that road and spent all that time, you know, doing a retrospective, then Dog and I did an event at Radio City, and then we've done a couple of events together in the last 2 years. So there's been a lot of that looking back over the last 30 years. But you know what? I think if you do too much of that, you know, you get caught up in it. I still want to work. What I like about sports is you get up and every day is a new day. Every day is a new story. Every day there's something new to get excited about. And that's what I like. I see, if I didn't get up and get passionate about it, and, you know, my wife has said to me about 15 times, how many times are you going to scream at the television set? So, I mean, but that's what I've been doing the last couple of weeks is just screaming in my office because I haven't had anyone to scream at. But the bottom line is that's what's exciting. That's what's fun for me is the fact that you can get in, do that, talk to fans who are passionate. And that's what New York is. And that's what the audience we've had with FAN is, passionate fans who care and care about sports. And I think that's what you have to do as a host. You have to like doing this. You have to be passionate about it. And then you have to be able to perform. You got to have a little personality, a little presence, and bring something to the table. If you have all that, you're going to have a great show.
one of my favorite lines, I was listening to you in a car one day, and you told a fan, part of being a fan is you can cheer for whoever you want. There's no such thing as allegiance to a specific team. If you're tired of the Jets, or if you're tired of Giants, or you're tired of whatever team you're cheering for, you can join another bandwagon. And I thought it was true because sometimes, being a former player, there's times when I run into fans and they're like, listen, I've been a Jets fan for 40 years. You guys suck. You're never going to turn it around. And I'm like, well, if you hate us that much, take the stress out of your life and go cheer for the Giants or somebody else. And I think
there's no rules.
Right.
There's
I think you've always exploited of being honest and transparent as far as saying, hey, man, one thing about being a fan is if you're gonna stay on the ship and ride with the ship, or you're gonna leave the ship and go join another ship, and that's your choice. Just because your daddy was a Jets fan, that doesn't give you the right to be a Jets fan. Be down for the cause. But I also say this: in all my years of listening to you, I can't remember how many times when you talked about the Knicks and you were so passionate about the legacy of Van Gundy and Riley and everybody. Is there one interview that sticks to your head where you say, man, that was a time in sports, or there was an interview that really sticks, that taught you a lesson, so to speak?
I got to interview everybody through the years, which was really, really so much fun. I mean, there's no one, and especially going back to the years of Mike and the Mad Dog, we would go to every big event. We would be at every big event. For a lot of years, it was just us. We were the only game in town. We were the only game anywhere when we started this stuff. For the first 10 or 12 years, it was just Dog and myself. There was nobody else out there. There was just no other. There wasn't anybody else doing it. There was no one else except us. So we were at everything, whether it was a big fight. Back in those days, we used to go to heavyweight fights and work. I mean, Trump brought us down to Atlantic City to do fights on numerous occasions. We were at the Garden for big events. We were obviously the first ones to go to the Super Bowl on a regular basis. Eddie Andelman up in Boston used to go every year also. There were a couple of shows. He had a show called the Sports Huddle. But there would be like 2 or 3 of us at the Super Bowl. Some years it'd be just Dog and myself to be the only ones there. I mean, now when you guys go to the Super Bowl in a couple of weeks and do shows, there'll be 400 radio shows there. There'll be radio shows around the clock in what they call Radio Row. Now, there wasn't even a radio room when we started. We were there by ourselves. We'd be in the hotel by ourselves doing the show. We would have players on. We would have general managers on. We would have people who coaching in the game on. Think about that now on a Friday, of having somebody who actually participates in the game sitting down on Radio Row. It would not happen in a million years. That used to happen to us on a Friday before the Super Bowl. We'd have people who were in the game on Sunday sitting with us on Friday talking about the game on Sunday. That's how far back we go with this thing. But what you said in the beginning was so true. And that is, I always find it comical when someone tries to give fans rules. There's no rules for being a fan. You can be any kind of fan you want. You could be with one team for 50 years, God bless you. You could change your team every year. That's your entertainment. That's your fun. That is the toy department. That's where you go to release pressure, to have some fun, to do some yelling and screaming where it doesn't matter. And that's why, to me, there's no rules about being a fan. That's the dumbest thing, is to put rules on your entertainment. This is your entertainment. For us, it's a business. For you, for anyone who's getting paid, anyone who's sitting behind a microphone, that's your business. I understand that. But if you're out there and you're calling in, this is what is your love. This is your entertainment. This is your passion. Do whatever you want. Have fun with it.
Mike, Francis here. This is our first show on the radio, and it's going to be 7 to 9 a.m. every single day.
And you almost made it through the first one. Yeah, good.
We're almost there.
Almost there, baby.
But I wanted to ask you, after all those years on radio, how you combated fatigue, because some of my favorite videos that I've ever watched were when you nodded off on radio. And what would you do to sort of stay awake?
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. Okay,
here we go.
That is a 12-second piece of tape. I was on the air, I calculate, probably about 80 million seconds. That's a 12-second piece of tape that everyone talks about. So to me, you know what? That day has been discussed a million times. It follows me everywhere. I mean, listen, you can't say anything that's going to impact that. Letterman did it 3 nights in a row, okay? He did that piece of tape 3 nights in a row. So it can't get any worse than that. So the bottom line is, you know what? I got more mileage out of that piece of tape than probably anybody has in history, because it's all anybody ever wants to talk about, to be honest with you. And I've always said this, and I mean it completely truthfully. As that happened, I'm sitting there listening to Sweeney. I have no idea what was going on because I don't remember it, to be honest with you. I didn't. And here's the most amazing thing. I didn't hear one word about that until 3 days after it happened. Not one word. Yes, no one even mentioned it to us until Thursday. I went home that day. I didn't even know that there was anything to discuss. The next day, nothing happened. That wasn't until Thursday till that tape started surfacing, and then for like 2 weeks, it was like a firestorm. Wherever I went, cameras, interviews, I mean, all people wanted to do. But here's the most amazing thing about that. That year, I won the Marconi. So, you know what? Everyone started doing
Give that man a round of applause.
It helps.
Give that man, the GOAT.
Look at the adversity you've been through. I think we just need to load up on Diet Cokes here, a la Mike Francesa. But, Mike,
you know what? If you listen, there's going to be days where, more importantly, there's going to be days, and Willie knows this as a performer, there's going to be days where you don't have it, where you got to go in and do 5.5 hours, where, you know what, things aren't good in your life. You're fighting with your wife, or you're fighting with somebody, or something's wrong, or you don't feel well, or you're going sick, and you still got to churn out a show. And, you know, that's what performers do. And that's what you're going to have to do, not once. You're going to have to do that. If you last 10 years, 5 years, I did that for 30 years, every day, longest show in the country. You got to churn it out. That's what you got to do. You got to forget about it and go to work. That's the idea.
Bless you.
Probably just going to have to develop a low-key drug habit at some point and keep things going.
Absolutely.
But Mike, you mentioned that you've had a lot of hot takes since you've been off. You've been yelling those opinions at your family, anyone who will listen. What is something that you have been thinking, you know, the hottest take you've had since you've been off that you haven't been able to spill?
Well, the ones that I could talk about, the biggest ones are just how dumb these head coaches are at the end of these games. I mean, it is amazing how many of these playoff games are lost by bad game decisions rather than anything that happens on the field. I mean, you wonder why the Patriots win so much. They win so much. Obviously, they have good players and they have a great quarterback, but they win because they never beat themselves. They never put themselves in positions, or do they make dumb plays, and dumb plays lose game, and dumb players lose games. And you saw plays in the Atlanta game against the Eagles. You saw plays in the Steeler game against Jacksonville, and you saw plenty of plays in the New Orleans-Minnesota game down the stretch, both sides, where teams did so many dumb things that almost or did cost them the game. All three of those games, coaching decisions crippled them in those games, and it's amazing how rare good coaching is in these playoff games, especially game situation coaching in big spots. It is very rare to see guys who are good at it. It's not like, oh, you expect people to be smart. No, you expect them to screw up. And all these games, you've seen guys screw up. In almost every one of these losses, with the exception of a couple of blowouts, you have seen guys make really dumb plays and dumb decisions at the end of these games.
We had Diana Rossini on, and she'll be out in Foxborough. She's been covering the Pats. I asked her earlier, the state of the Pats. You talk about the offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels. He'll be gone. You talk about the D.C. Patricia. He'll be gone. And we also talk about Belichick. Do you see him leaving? And if so,
no.
Where?
I don't think he's leaving.
You think he's going down as a Patriot?
I think he's staying. I think Brady's staying. I think they'll work out. Kraft will work out their differences. They're both pliable. If they weren't pliable, they wouldn't be there this long. Belichick can work with others. A lot of great coaches can't. He can work with others. That's a positive of his. I don't think they're going anywhere. The distraction in the room is gone. Garoppolo's gone. That was the distraction in the room.
Now, why do you say that, though? Why do you say
because Tom didn't want anybody in. Because Tom didn't want anybody infringing on his job. He didn't want anybody. Yes, I completely believe it.
That's from that ESPN article that reported that.
I just think it's human nature. It's the same thing Montana had with Young.
Why would
what happens?
But Mike, why would you let him go to San Fran, though?
Listen, he traded him where he wanted to trade him. He traded them at the end. They held him. They tried to re-sign him. And then they traded him for what they thought was, well, A, they did Shanahan a favor because he has a relationship with the Shanahan family.
Correct.
Number two, he got a pick that he likes. The Pats like high twos. They think high twos are like ones. They think they're the most valuable picks in the draft because you pay guys like a two, but they're really like first-round picks. Mm-hmm. So they like those picks. That's the way they believe in the draft. So that's what they did. Early on, they were asking for much more, but as they came down to where they were going to lose him, and the kid wasn't going to re-sign there, he was going to go for the big money. The kid knows he's good. The Pats knew he's good, and they got the distraction out of the room. But don't worry about the assistants. Here's the question I have. Why does everybody beat down New England's door for assistants? None of their
You know why? That's because of Belichick. They feel like he's the guru.
Yeah, they
feel like he's the guy that it's like anything. When you train underneath a master, you expect your students to be just as good.
And what you just said, the dumbest thing in the world, because you know why? Their assistants have been terrible head coaches.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Give me their successful assistant who's had a good career. Who has been a head coach? You can
say the same thing with Saban, too.
Wait, who's been good in New England? Mangini got fired twice, and he's the best one, and he got fired twice. Charlie isn't even coaching anymore. Romeo, who I love personally, I've known him for a million years, is a great assistant.
Man,
not a good head coach. Not a great head coach, though. He's a good assistant. He's a great coordinator. He's not a head coach. McDaniel failed the first time. Every guy who's come out of there to be a head coach has failed. Why would you beat a door to their path to steal their assistants? I think people just like I would not go hire someone who, with a notable exception of a few guys, like I would rehire Belichick because he's special. But I wouldn't run to hire someone who's already won a Super Bowl. You got to pay him a ton of money. You got to give him unbelievable power. You got to give him everything he wants, and not one of them has ever gone to another team and won a Super Bowl. So why would you then run for guys who have already won? You want guys in the NFL who have not proven anything yet, who are hungry as coaches. You don't want guys who've already won. It's not the same thing. And not one guy who has ever won a Super Bowl has ever gone to another team and won a Super Bowl. Not Holmgren, who came the closest, not Parcells. Nobody has ever done it. Joe Gibbs came back, he failed. Every guy who's tried to do it has failed. Why would you go give Gruden the keys to the city when no one has been successful doing that?
Mike, well, we really appreciate you getting very emphatic here.
Thanks for coming on, Mike.
Barstool Radio.
Thanks, Mike.
And you know what? I think you got a lot of gas left in the tank, and we want you. We love if you'd want to come in person. We'll give you all the Diet Cokes you want in the world and all the friendly faces. You know I'm a big fan, and
so am I, Mike.
Yeah, we all are. We all are.
Well,
here,
listen, thanks very much. And listen, you know what? I'm very partial to anybody who works in this business, obviously. So I wish you well. I hope you do a great job, and good luck to you. And first show, you got the first one on. Now, you know what? Now you got to do it again about 1 million times. So good luck.
yeah, shit. We're fucked after this. Thank you for helping us out, Mike. We'll see you soon.
Take care. My pleasure.
All right, guys. That was the one and only sports vote, Mike Francesa. Wow, wasn't
that
amazing?
That was an honor. And I tell you what, as a kid in New York growing up, he's been amazing. So good.
All right. Well, we're gonna break that down when we come up. Just a quick timeout. More on Barstool Breakfast.